Spanish. These lessons are translated into Spanish, and you will need an assisted listening device to hear them. And if you just raise a hand, someone will see to it that you're provided with one of those. All right. I used to be able to get away with these things, but now since we're putting all these sermons on YouTube and everybody and their dog can read them, somebody's going to catch me one of these days. So I've got to start giving credit where occasional credit is due. This particular lesson is an outline from my brother-in-law, Bob Hines. Since his son, well, I doubt if he'll see it on the internet, but his son might happen to look at it and say, John's stealing my dad's sermons nowadays. So I'm giving him full credit for this one. Paying our bills is a part of faithfulness. I'd like for you to look with me to another passage in Peter, in 2 Peter 1 and verse 3. You know, everybody's got a pile of bills. And all of us at one point or another in our lives has had an enormous pile of bills. And we wondered how in the world we were going to make that happen. That pile of bills may have happened through our silliness, may have come about through disaster of one sort or another that has come upon us. But there that pile of bills is, and we've got to pay them. In 2 Peter 1 and verse 3, it says, His divine power hath given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, through the knowledge of him that hath called us to glory and virtue. Now, if we have been given all things that pertain to life and godliness, one of the things is the Lord has taught us how to become Christians. My goodness, I preach on that a lot, don't I? Seems like I do. Hebrews 5, verses 8 through 9. Though he were a son, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered. Being made perfect, he became the author of eternal salvation unto all them that obey him. And so we've all believed that. We've all responded to it. We've done those things necessary. We've believed in him. We've repented of our sins. We've confessed him. We've been baptized. So we've done that. We believe that's part of all things that pertain to life and godliness. But there's other things that pertain to life and godliness. The Lord has taught us not only how to become Christians, but he's taught us how to live as Christians as well. And so in 2 or 3 passages, one of them that I think of is in 1 Timothy 6. How do we go about using our money? 1 Timothy 6, verse 6. The Lord says, Godliness with contentment is great gain. We brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. But they that would be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. So the Lord's talking to us about how to use our money, that we should be content with simple things. But he says that if we would be rich, if we would try so hard to amass such a pile that it drowns us in many foolish and hurtful lusts. He speaks of it again in this 6th chapter in verse 17. Charge them that are rich in this world that they be not high-minded, nor trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God, who giveth us richly all things to enjoy, that they may do good, that they be rich in good works, ready to distribute, willing to communicate, laying up in store for themselves a good foundation against the time to come, that they may lay hold on eternal life. Part of this instruction as to how to live as Christians is why we pay our bills. Why do we pay them? First of all, it's because we owe them. That's sort of one of the basic ones. It's because we owe them. We entered into some contract or another, some agreement or another, and it is our debt. It's something we have engaged. It is a contract we've made in one sort or another. You say, well, I remember a contract. Well, you did too. You agreed to pay your electric bill the day you signed up for electrical service. You agreed to pay your rent. You agreed to pay your mortgage. You agreed to pay the heat bill, whatever you're heated, if it's with gas or otherwise. You agreed to pay your automobile. You agreed all those. You made contracts, either physical contracts or verbal contracts. So it's because we owe them that we pay them. We made a promise. It's the same thing. You weren't holding your fingers behind your back, which all of us used to, which some of us thought we could do as kids. You made a promise that you would pay your bills. We gave our word. Same sort of idea. In James 5 and verse 12. Above all, brothers, do not swear, neither by heaven or by earth, or by anything else. Let your yes be yes, and your no, no, or you will be condemned. If you're going to say yes, you go into that car dealer and whoo, they've got some nice cars these days. They got cars now that'll just about drive themselves. Well, so they will drive themselves. I can't afford one of those yet, but in 5 years, I'm looking forward to it because I think I'm going to need it. And I can guarantee you, if my mother managed to live 5 more years, she's going to buy one too, because she's tired of having to depend on me to get her places. So we want those self-driving cars. But whew, the only one you can buy right now is a Tesla. And I think that's about $100,000, and that may be a cheap one. Ooh, but it's shiny, and it'll take me there. Maybe you shouldn't play on your computer. I think one guy got killed doing that, not paying attention to what was going on. But all of them are nice. They'll play music. They'll play. My phone will talk to me. The car will talk to me. I can even pick the voice, make sure that it's a nice woman with a British accent. I've always imagined that. It's kind of nice that way. But hey, before you say yes to that $1 billion car, you better remember you're giving your word to something. And you better figure out that you're going to be able, one way or another, to pay for it. Because you don't want to just drive it off the dealer's lot and then immediately forget that you gave your word to pay for it. It's something you owe. A lot of people get kind of forgetful about those things. In Romans 13 and verse 8, owe no man anything but to love one another, for he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. Part of our activity as Christians is loving. Now, when that says, owe no man other, that doesn't mean that you can't get a loan on your car. But if you're going to get a loan, you be sure you pay it. You be sure you make the payments. That's part of being a Christian. And you know what? It's not one thing to say, well, baptism's part of being a Christian. That's a big part. Well, yeah, okay. But paying your bills is a big part too. Where did you get the idea that one was more important than the other? You might notice another couple of thoughts about this. the debt of our love is always due. That's what he's saying. The debt of money we have to pay. Notice a passage in Matthew 5, verse 25. It says, settle matters quickly with your adversary who is taking you to court. This is the NIV. Do it while you are still with him on the way, or he may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. I tell you the truth, you will not get out until you've paid the last penny. Now that's pretty simple, isn't it? And if I don't pay them, what am I doing actually? If I take your $20,000 car, drive it off that lot, and just keep driving it till the wheels are about to fall off, and I don't pay you a penny and make you hunt me down and try to catch me so that you can repo the car and drag money out of my ironclad hip pocket, well, that's stealing. That's just another fancy way to steal. You took something without paying for it. It's simple enough, isn't it? You know, if you used all that electricity, you know, Alan McKee back there's got those squirrels. He works for an electric company. He's got those squirrels running in those cages, putting out power for you. And you, come December, you wanted the power. You were freezing to death. You wanted the lights. You wanted your TV to work. You wanted your computer to work. And you took all that in, and then suddenly it took them about 2 months to turn it off, 2 or 3. You didn't want to pay for it. Well, I'm sorry. You shouldn't have used it. In Ephesians 4 and verse 28, let him that stole steal no more. That's part of being a Christian. But rather let him labor, working with his hands, that thing that is good, that he may have to give to him that needeth. We need to pay for the things we receive. That's part of being a Christian. In addition, it's part of taking care of our family. You need to take care of your family. Our actions, how I behave, reflects on my family, my children, others. My virtues can help them. If they see me kind and generous and loving, industrious, that's going to help them in life. That's going to maybe wash over on them just a little bit. They'll perhaps be kind and industrious and helpful themselves. But at the same time, my lack of virtue can also hurt them. If they see me dodging from place to place, running from bills, moving from apartment to apartment because I didn't pay the bill, that's going to hurt them also. They're going to think that's how you live. In 1 Timothy 5 and verse 8, if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he has denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. Now, I've usually used that, and I think the principles used in 1 Timothy 5 to refer to caring for our older family members. But the principle applies far more generally than that. Can you imagine a father who wouldn't provide for his own children? Who wouldn't see to it that the light bill, the heat bill is paid so that they don't freeze to death in the winter? So that they're not having to constantly move from place to place, pillar to post, because he refuses to pay his bills and has arranged more than he's willing to make. He's denied the faith. Why? Because paying your bills is part of being a Christian. Simple enough, isn't it? It's part of being a Christian. Part of our provision for my family is seeing to the family bills as they're due. That's simple enough. But it's also part of being a good example in life. And the Lord talks about that in considerable length. It's part of our watching how we live, how other people watch how we live. He says in Philippians 2, verse 15, that ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of God without rebuke, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation. Boy, these days, if you bought a house, my goodness, they bring out a stack of papers. You buy a car anymore, it's about like that. Bring out a big old stack of papers. Why is that necessary? Because we live in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation. People who will cheat on that. But you and I are to be blameless and harmless, the sons of God without rebuke, among whom, in the midst of this crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as lights in the world. So that somebody shakes your hand, Jason over there borrows $5 because he's starving to death for lunch, and he says, I'll pay you back tomorrow. Shakes your hand on it, and lo and behold, tomorrow he gives you $5 because he shines as a light in the world. He's not going to dodge you in the halls and make sure he doesn't see you. And oh no, there's George. I owe him $5. Quick, run the other way. He's not going to do that. He's going to shine as a light in the world, holding forth the word of life, that I may rejoice in the day of Christ, that I have not run in vain, neither labored in vain. It's a part of the Lord's rule of reciprocity. Ooh, that was a big word. I don't know how they translated that, but I hope it worked. We're supposed to use ourselves over and over again in the Bible as a starting point, a reference point. And so the Lord, when he speaks to us, he says in Luke 6 and verse 31, as ye would that men should do to you, do ye also to them likewise. Do you want people to owe you money for the goods and services and things that you sell and not pay you for them? No, I don't think you do. So, you should do the same to them. You use yourself, what you want and how you would expect to be dealt with, as a starting point. And then do the same toward others. Do you want people to pay you when they owe you? I think probably so. We need to treat them the same way. Somehow I lost a note that I had in here that I wanted to refer to. Let's look at that passage we read at the outset. I wanted to go back over it. 1 Peter 2. He says in verse 11, that's where we read. Who read for me? Justin, was that you? 1 Peter 2, verse 11, dearly beloved, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul. Now, what are those fleshly lusts? Well, my goodness, we know about all that sexual stuff. We're kind of obsessed with that in this country, aren't we? You've heard a lot of sermons about that. Could some of those fleshly lusts pertain to that new shiny car you saw that would drive itself and play music and talk to you in a pleasing voice? Or clothes that you put on that nice shiny credit card? Or you like to be warm in the winter? And you don't want to have to pay for it. It should all be free, shouldn't it? Our college education should be free. That's what we're being told in this country. And we shouldn't have to pay the loans that we made to get that college education. That was just greedy of somebody somewhere is to expect us to pay those 2 and 3% loans. My goodness. Well, those are fleshly lusts too. And he says they war against the soul. Having your manner of life, I think, well, I had stuck this on here in a different version. Oh well. Which I liked better. Having your manner of life, your conversation, honest among the Gentiles. Here we are, Christians, and we live in a world filled with apparently cheaters and people who want something for nothing. That whereas they speak against you as evildoers, they may by your good works, which they shall behold, glorify God in the day of visitation. Submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake. Boy, I tell you, some of those ordinances of men just irritate me. Long about April 15th, every year, they just irritate the fire out of me. I have to pay my taxes. And every time I check out at the Walmart, I think I've bought something for $9.95, and that crazy woman at the cash register said, no, you owe 7% more in sales. Oh, we call the fun out of this. And then if I eat out at a restaurant, they want 9% here in Indiana. I just resent that. Maybe I can weasel out of paying that somehow. Submit yourselves to every ordinance of man. And property taxes, you got to pay property taxes. And it just goes on and on and on. If you buy that new $100,000 car, you don't even want to know what it's going to cost to get you a license to stick on the back end of it. And a lot of people don't seem to bother with that. That's stealing. You're stealing. Submit yourself to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether to king or governors. For so, in verse 15, for so is the will of God, that with well-doing you may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men. As free, and not using your liberty for a cloak of maliciousness, but as the servants of God. Well, how we live each day is just as much a part of our being Christians as the fact that we are together for worship. You know, a lot of people think, well, I've done my duty. I went to church Sunday morning. How you live each day is just as much a part of your duty as coming to church on Sunday morning. In Hebrews 13, by him therefore let us offer the sacrifice of praise to God on Sunday morning. No, that's not what it says. It says continually. Continually. That is the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name. But to do good and to communicate, forget not, for with such sacrifices God is well pleased. We not only are to love the Lord, we're supposed to live for him. A lot of people got that love down. Oh, how I love Jesus. But we live in him and he in us. You know, we sing a song sometimes that we're the only Bible the world's going to see. There it is. If you're here this morning and you're not a Christian, we implore you to become one. You need to start. Now, this sermon hasn't been about starting. It's been about continuing. You need to change your life in so many ways. You need to live as he has directed you to. And he will forgive you your failures, which we're all grateful for. And he will save us. Come while we stand and sing.